Now, why is any of this interesting? Why do we care about these families and subfamilies? Well, some of it is to do with styling and making it look good. For example, if you're creating something that is meant to be conservative, you don't want to use something like a modern typeface. So having that knowledge is important. But more importantly, it's about readability. So there was a study conducted by MIT a few years back where they looked at the difference between a car dashboard that was created in a grotesque typeface versus a car dashboard that had a humanist typeface. And then they looked at how long the drivers needed to look at their dashboard at any given time. And they found an 11% reduction in the amount of time that the drivers needed to look down at that dashboard in order to gauge the information they needed when they used a humanist instead of a grotesque. And when those times are converted into distance, say on a standard motorway or highway, and it was actually equivalent to about 40 feet in difference. So if you think about the driver who needs to look down at their dashboard while they were traveling 40 feet longer than the driver who had a humanist dashboard, then that could actually be the difference between life and death of a pedestrian. So even though we think that, design is very much about form, at heart, it's actually all about function. And designs with only form and no function will never ever work well. So always keep that in mind. Now, in the study, they tested the difference between a grotesque typeface, which you can see up here, versus a humanist typeface down here. And we're going to talk about some of the things that make a particular typeface more readable than the other. So first, you can see that the humanist typeface has more open shapes. So if you look at the C, the size of the opening is slightly larger than the C in the grotesque typeface. Also, if you look at the intercharacter spacing, in the grotesque typeface, there's less distance between each of the letters than the humanist typeface, also making it slightly harder to read. And then we look at how ambiguous the letters are from each other. So the G and the 9 in the grotesque look pretty similar. They're all very square. Whereas in the humanist font, you can clearly differentiate the G and the 9. So there's less confusion in the brain and hence leading to increased readability. And finally, when you're selecting a readable typeface, you want to look for varying proportions. So certain letters having large width, certain letters having a narrow width. These are a few things that determine readability and determine when we should pick each typeface.